fast day of Tammuz. Question is, why do we fast today? For things that happened years ago. Well, the simple answer is, we also make festival today for things that happened many years ago. And perhaps the principle behind this is expressed in the Bible, where we find the difference between the Hebrew of the Bible and modern Hebrew is that in the Bible, the past is expressed in the future tense, whilst in most languages the past is finished, avar ayin, ve'atid adayin, the future isn't there yet. But the Bible is the book of the future, which shows the seeds of the future in the past. And if we don't remember the past, then we'll be confused what's going to happen in the future. If you remember the past, we'll have a future. The nation that does not remember what happened in the past, for good or for bad, as a result, has no real future. But the Jewish nation, based upon the Bible, where there's a constant series of different summonses to remember what happened in order to not repeat mistakes and to learn all the lessons that can be learned from what's happened in the past, which applies also to the individual. But to understand specifically the aspect of fast days, I'd like you to turn, those who follow Hebrew, to the Rambam. I've brought quite a few editions here. Hilchot Ta'aniot, Perek Rishon. Please, they're on the table, help yourselves. There the Rambam speaks about the laws and the principles of fast days. He does not here deal with the fast day of Yom Kippur, which is the essence of atonement for the people of Israel. He speaks in general terms, that mitzvot aseh min HaTorah, it is a commandment of the Torah to cry in prayer and even to blow shofarot and trumpets. Al kol tzara shetabor latzibur, every trouble that comes upon the community, because it says al atzar tzoreh etchem. When there's any trouble or enemy that comes against you, you should cry to Hashem. And he says this is one of the paths of penitence. That at the time when the trouble will come and the people will pray, then the people will know that the trouble which has come upon the nation is because of the sins of the nations. It is your sins that caused the troubles. And if you will do teshuvah, you change your sinful way, because the principle of the Torah is that you can change human nature, and even the evils of human nature can be removed and transformed. This will also cause the troubles to go away from you. But what happens if the people of Israel do not cry to Hashem? Of course, it applies also to non-Jews, but it's the Jewish people who have been given a pattern of life to follow by God Himself, by Hashem, and they accepted it. So therefore Hashem says, if the people will say whatever has happened, it's just happenings. all the evil that take place in the world have got nothing to do with human behavior. That's the concept by which some people live as individuals and also even as a nation. And that happens to the people of Israel. The Rambam says this is a path of Arzariyut, of cruelty, because that causes them to continue doing the evil deeds and will bring further troubles. That's why it's about Achtam imi bekeri. It says frequently, and especially in the Chumash, when it describes the great blessing that come upon the people of Israel, the land of Israel, and we don't keep the specific laws of the Torah, and we'll say whatever happens, which is unfortunate, or which is even a catastrophe, it's a question of chance. And you say it's all chance. These are just happenings that take place. Then I will go with you, Bachamat Keri. I will bring upon you more troubles until you do teshuvah. So that's what, if you say it's Keri, matter of chance, and not divine providence, I will add to you the anger, that means the increased troubles that will come from you regarding the Keri. I'd like to just, it's a bit humorous, but maybe it makes us think what's happening today. It's just, no one should take this further comment I'm going to make as being the real meaning. But it's a good mnemonic that those who, I would say, do not follow the concepts of the Bible too much. It happened in 1938, in Munich, by the way. And you know, we just this headline today, there was some terrorist who killed a few people in Munich. So, in 1938 in Munich, there was the famous umbrella of Chamberlain, who went to make a pact with Hitler. And under that umbrella, he said, "Peace in our time." That's what he called it. That was in 1938. And more recently, we've had also a Mr. Kerry, representative of Obama, the President of the United States, who also declared peace in our time. He made an agreement with Iran. In fact, they put out a picture, a photograph, which you've got in the yeshiva, it's also on our website, of a photograph of Chamberlain's umbrella, and that umbrella, peace in our time, that really gave the opportunity to Hitler to go and prepare himself to invade Czechoslovakia and Poland and other places and start his Deutschland über alles, his campaign, especially against the Jewish people. And Kerry, because there's made a parallel photograph. When he also came with his document, we made a peace agreement with Obama, or from Obama with Iran, de facto permitting them to develop their nuclear weapons. That's what's happening today. So it's just, this is Varachtem Bekeri. Of course, the deeper meaning is that we've got to regard what happens to the people in the past was providence, for good and for evil. But unfortunately, the warnings of what might happen did happen. not only the people of Israel's temple was destroyed and the whole people were banished from the land, but even when a small group came with the second temple, it was also destroyed and they were banished. And the most terrible suffering that was warned in the Chumash what might come from the people of Israel. We don't keep our mission to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, then there'll be a Holocaust, mention of the Chumash. And unfortunately it happened. And today we're in the post-Holocaust, the most serious relapses, especially in Europe. And the most specific aspect of this, can somebody see providence through the way in which events occur on certain dates? You might think it's all chance. Okay, call it chance, Koral. You know, this Koral we have in our Parsha this week. It's a question of chance. But apparently, there is a King of Kings who directs these matters of chance. How is it that in 1789 there was a famous change in Europe to declare fraternity, equality and liberty. The French Revolution, July the 14th, 1789. And what happened July the 14th last week in Nice, in France? On that same day, there was a massacre. From whom? From the successors to Haman, Persia. They're behind it. Or as we learnt, that Bilam says, "Oy mi yiche misuma el when Yishmael," when Islam becomes completely wild, more wild than any beast, to kill innocent people in the cruelest manners possible, like Daesh, and others, Hamas, which means violence, cruelty. So, on that same day, there's been a change, unfortunately, from liberty, fraternity and equality to cruel massacre of innocent individuals. That's what we're facing. So therefore we have to remember the past and take notice of the way in which the lessons are described in the past, what might happen in the future, which means the present. So, the Rambam says, we follow his words further, that we should know that behind these fast days, if such troubles continue, we have to do teshuvah. It says that on these fast days, he carries on saying, which the sages make when troubles come, the purpose of them is to do teshuvah, because maybe we haven't yet corrected those sins of the past in our present life, and we're continuing to have these troubles because we ourselves have to reckon that what's happening today is we hadn't put right these sins which remain until today. So the 17th of Tammuz is the first day of the 3 weeks. And 3 weeks are referred to at the beginning of the Book of Lamentations. Lamentations being said over the destruction of the first temple by the prophet Jeremiah. And there it says, Kol Reitfeho Hisigu Bein HaMetzarim. All those that wish to pursue the people of Israel, they were able to fulfill their evil intentions between these two borders, Bein HaMetzarim. Mitzarim also means Meitzah, between these two troublesome times. Although we've had troubles all the year round, but the worst national troubles have taken place between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. There's also another explanation behind Mitzarim. And that's described in the current parshas we read from the Chumash, where we're given the borders of Eretz Israel. So the troubles that came, they did have to do with the land of Israel, in one way or another. Even though the sin started in the desert, but the desert wandering was the preparation of the holy people to merit to set up in the Holy Land, a land which would have an influence through the people serving Hashem, with the center of the temple, to bring the whole world to war and even movements of hatred entirely obsolete, and put in their place the teachings of love, the true teachings of equality, liberty, and fraternity for mankind. And it's very interesting that on the walls of the United Nations, we know the United Nations Charter was really based upon the vision of the prophets of the ultimate abolition of warfare and fair distribution of all the plentiful produces on this globe to all human beings. So that prophecy, mentioned a few times in the Bible, is put on the wall of the United Nations. And the whole code of the League of Nations and of the United Nations Charter is based upon the vision of the prophets. But their UNESCO, the United Nations Organization for developing universal culture, they came out with a declaration that the Temple Mount's got nothing to do with the Jewish people. So why is it written on the walls of the United Nations that it's got to do very much with the Jewish people, where it says that in the future all the nations of the world will learn from that Temple Mount the teaching of God to bring peace to mankind. And now they came up with the opposite, under the influence of the terrible, corrupt lies and falsehoods of the fanatical Muslims. That's what happened in the world today. So we can see it's very relevant that we should recognize the borders of Eretz Israel, Bein HaMetzarim, mentioned in the passages we read from the Chumash, from the Bible, during the 3 weeks, is because we are in mourning that this has been under attack, been destroyed, and even now when the people of Israel are coming back to the land of Israel, we find the nations of the world on the whole, they are not progressing, but on the contrary, they're becoming more corrupt under the combined influence of Esav and Ishmael, or call it neo-Nazism, and Islam distortions of the Quran, the Islam fanaticism, which is a blasphemy on the God who is really worshipped by the Muslims, the true Muslims. So let us therefore go and see what is special about this day, Shavuos B'Tammuz. So if you look a bit further in the laws of the fast days, in the second chapter, that chapter. It's in the 5th chapter. It says, the 5th chapter of Hilchot Ta'anet, it begins chapter, there are some days where all the people of Israel fast, because of the troubles that occurred then, in order to arouse the hearts, to open up the paths of penitence. And this should be a commemoration to change our evil actions, and also change the evil actions of our fathers, whose actions were similar to our evil actions. So it caused troubles to them and to us, because by remembering these matters, we will improve our own lifestyle. As it says in the Chumash, "Vitvadu et avonam v'etavan avotam." There'll come a time, if we keep up the continuity of memory of the Jewish people from one generation to the next, which is a major summons of Hashem to the people of Israel. So we realize that we have the mission, the highest mission, to become the holy nation, the kingdom of priests, to change the whole world. We've had our higher points, but unfortunately we've also reached the lowest points as a nation. And in each generation, we have to work on ourselves to bring the level of the people of Israel to Teshuvah, that the atonement should be so strong that it works even retroactively. In other words, whatever has been, it's like the sages say, Yeridah Tzorech Aliyah. Just like in the life of an individual, he may have sinned very much, but there's always a chance from the depths of despair and sinfulness, you can rise to the greatest heights. If you do teshuvah, freedom is given, and freedom is given to every generation. We shouldn't think that we are victims of the past. The past can be changed. So it says, which are these fasts? So there's the 3rd of Tishrei, on which Gedaliah ben Achikam was assassinated, and the little glowing coal of the people of Israel that was left over, but it was the end of the life of the people of Israel at that time in the land of Israel. Then the 10th of Tevet, on the day when the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, began the siege on Yerushalayim. And then the 17th of Tammuz, 3 things happened. The tablets of stone, which were on a wholly supernatural level, they became broken because of the sin of the golden calf. Then at a later time, the daily offering in the temple became nullified in the first temple. In the second temple, which was surrounded at that time by the strong walls of Yerushalayim, which stopped even the Romans for many years from being able to destroy it. but that's the time when the wall was broken. Apostomus, the wicked one, burnt the Torah. Some say that was Menashe, who was in the time of the first temple, who burnt the Torah and burnt other Torah. And some say it was in the time of the Maccabeans. And Hemet Tzelem Behechal. Also, they put an idol in the temple. And Tisha B'Av, 5 things happened. Which decreed the people of Israel should not enter the land because of the sin of the spies. The first and the second temple were both destroyed on Tisha B'Av. The last stronghold of the Jewish people under the Romans and the Hadrianic persecutions, the city of Beitar was captured, and there were tens of thousands of Jews that were killed. And even at that time, some thought, and even Rabbi Akiva, that Bar Kokhba would be the Mashiach, but he fell in the hands of the Romans. They were all killed. And then Tonus Rufus, he went and plowed up the whole area of the temple. So these 4 fast days, when it does not reckon Tanit Esther has special significance of a different type, wasn't so directly because of to do with the temple and exile from the land of Israel. But these 4 fasts are referred to by the prophets. And on these times, it's a custom of the people of Israel to fast. On 13 Vadar, it's also a custom to follow the fasts introduced in the times of Haman. So, the major principle mentioned by the prophets, because the time when they were able to rebuild the second temple, so they asked, what shall we do? Shall we continue the fast or not? So the prophet said that in the future, if the people of Israel will really do teshuvah, it says, Ha'emet v'shalom ahivu, if they'll all learn to love truth and peace, these days will become days of Yom Tov. Therefore the sages say that there'll be a Yom Tov of redemption, which starts on the 17th of Tammuz and ends on Tisha B'Av, when the Mashiach will come. Because then we'll have perhaps reached the high level of doing teshuvah, we hope, to such an extent that the utopian period coming after Mashiach will bring peace to the whole world. So it depends on us. But now I want to just say just a few words about the 5 things that happened on today, on this day. We know on Tisha B'Av, it happened again and again. Banishment of Jews did not only end with the banishment of the Jews from the land of Israel under the Roman burners of the temple, Vespasian and Titus, but it went on, because on that same day, there was an edict at the time of the Crusaders, all Jews had to leave England until the time of Oliver Cromwell. They were banished from England. And also on that same day, Also, the Crusaders banished all Jews from France. On that same day, in 1492, all the Jews were banished from Spain. On that same day, in 1914, was the declaration of the First World War, which was the unfortunate prologue to the Second World War and the Holocaust. It's also on Tisha B'Av. The 17th of Tammuz, so we see the first reason is because the tablets of stone were broken, which really means sin of the golden calf. And the sin of the golden calf threatens us also today, when there are, unfortunately, many Jews who also think that we can only come to God through a human being, which was the basic sin. They also thought Moshe is no longer with us, was mainly the mixed multitude. In other words, in the time when there were the 10 plagues in Egypt, many of the greatest magicians and wise men and scientists amongst the Egyptians, they even said themselves, this is a finger of God. We are beginning to believe in the God of the people of Israel. And therefore, when in the end Paro said let all the Jews go, they said to Paro, we also want to join them. Some of them were the biggest scientists of their time. Some were the biggest magicians. They're called the wise men of Paro. And many of Moshe Rabbeinu felt, well, these are people who can join us. Let's take them to receive the Torah together with the rest of the nation. As we read today in the reading on this past day, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Shichet Amcha, your people whom you took out from Egypt. Because Moshe, he pleaded for Hashem on behalf of these, I would say, upper groups from Egyptian society who said, let's go up with the people of Israel together. And Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to Hashem and said, can I do it? He didn't get an answer. So he thought, well, I'll try it out. So when it happened, he was on the mountain. So in fact, Hashem says, your people whom you took out from Egypt, you brought them out. I didn't, you're quite right, I never forbade you to bring them, but still, you're willing to do it on your responsibility. Because he felt very much, he said, look, if my father-in-law, can understand, was even a priest of Midian, and we can see that there Hashem agreed that Yitro is certainly a Ger Tzedek. He tried out every religion of his time, and he came to the conclusion, Atayadati, this is the right religion. He was very brilliant, one of the most brilliant people of his time, and wanted to join Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, what about all these people? They all want to become Kedim. Why not? But these people were still somewhat attached to Egyptian idolatry. So I'm not going to all the details now, but it's not what the hints are given in the Chumash, what's going on. That's why Hashem says, your people have become corrupt and corrupted everybody else. Because you came down, in their eyes, you came down a bit later, had to have a substitute. And what do we have today? Also, in fact, there's a Merkaz Klal here, with the biggest shopping centers in Yerushalayim. And it's filled with missionary offices. Even someone said nobody's allowed to go in there anymore, the Merkaz Klal. Missionaries are working hard here, on Jews as well, weak Jews. What do missionaries say? Well, you can keep Judaism. Many missionaries today, they say, oh yes, let's keep Judaism like the founder of Christianity kept it. And he was the Son of God, so, Otherwise, they lose their concept of the true God. It has similarities to the golden calf. And the sages also, since it says when Moshe Rabbeinu saw the egel, the calf, which included some of the most fantastic jewelry and gold of the people of Israel, you know, they like gold and silver, and he saw they were dancing, immoral dances. So you see, okay, you know, they think they can combine their worship with God with also giving in to the lower instincts, materialistic instincts. And there are all sorts of movements, you know. There's Jews for J, and then we have, on the other hand, we have people all very, very religious, but they begin to say, you know, I come from a more Christian society, and therefore I must have a medium between me and God. And therefore, I must say that I can only pray if I look at the Lubavitcher Rebbe and call him, he's the Mashiach, which was against the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's very much against it. But they insisted, because the Rebbe spoke always how you've got to wait for the Mashiach. And they were not willing to wait. They said, we want Mashiach now, and they think they've got Mashiach now, and put it on their kippot. That's also Chet Egel. In other words, the concept of the pure, transcendental power of the mind of the universe who looks after everything and gives us power of thought, it is intermingled with idolatrous concepts like early Christianity was. It's happening today amongst Jews, and certainly amongst Gentiles. And amongst the Muslim Gentiles it's even worse. They declare, yes, Allah Akbar, and Allah is the pure God, He is the Almighty God, Allah Akbar. He is Allah Akbar, and but they combine with Al-Aqsa, which is not mentioned in the Quran at all, no mention of Jerusalem. They've made Jerusalem, they say it's ours, which is a distortion of the Quran. And in the name of Allah Akbar, which means Almighty God, and Al-Aqsa, which is their name for the holy mountain. So what have they done? They go with hatchets to go and kill people, innocent people, and they go and murder them. As the Mufti did, murder the Holy Shiva in Hebron, and today his followers and the others, they're murdering innocent people, Jews or Christians, or also the Muslims that don't agree with them. And unfortunately, also even many of the Muslims agree with them, are also killed. And they themselves kill themselves against the explicit commandment of God to all human beings, the prohibition of suicide. So that's what's happening in the world today. So that's all to do with the golden calf. Because if we, as a nation, would have done this, have been loyal to Moshe Rabbeinu and waited a bit longer, you would have received the first luchot. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw they're trampling what's written in the luchot under their feet, he said, and he saw that, Vayayta Egel Mocholot, Vayshaber Oto Lehem, he broke the luchot. Because he says what? It's the letters flew into the air. That means the power of the Torah is still in the world. It's got to be picked up by the saints. But unfortunately, as a result, the Jewish people did not reach the utopian level they could have reached at that time. So in our time also, we've got to reckon the importance of Shvirat HaRuchot. But on the one hand, it says at the end of the Chumash, the strong hand which Moshe did in the eyes of the children of Israel. The last words of the Chumash. So the sage said, what is that? That was breaking the luchot. How could Moshe Rabbeinu dare to break these holy luchot? Why did he break them? But the sage is very good that he broke them. Because by breaking them, he teaches us, don't think that if you've got a Sefer Torah, you've got the Luchot, you've got the Aron HaKodesh, that you're automatically holy. No such thing. You've got to work on yourselves. You have to change. You have to do teshuvah. So what happened? He went to the mountain, 40 days of prayer, 40 days to receive the second luchot. That's a concept of rebirth. You've got to become reborn. And Yom Kippur is the great day of atonement because it comes for the second luchot. So the Shavuot, the first luchot, it's the ideal. But if you've gone down, you shouldn't feel finished. Never finished. There's always a second chance. And if you really do teshuvah, Hashem will forgive you for everything. That's Yom Kippur. So that's the Shvirat HaLuchot. That's one thing. The second thing is the Tomid. The Tom became nullified. How does that apply today? I would say one of the main things in the life of the individual and also the life of the Jewish nation. You've reached a certain level of observance. We know in the observance of the Torah, you've got to keep to do things regularly and continuously. Don't think that in life you can create a change of character and a change therefore also of destiny by just doing things occasionally. You've got to work on it day by day. You've got to learn Torah every day, morning and night. You've got to say tefillah every day. That's what Bet Mikdash says. Olat Tamid Ha'Suyo B'Har Sinai. At Sinai, that's the important principle, Tomid. Afterwards introduced into the temple. And when there's no temple, introduced into our daily prayer and daily observance of tefillin and daily observance of doing kindness every day and daily observance of speaking nicely and only positively and removing evil speech day by day. That's how we build up. As according to a nice saying, which is basically the approach of the Torah, it says, sow a good deed. Yeah. And by repeating it, the good deed create a habit. And if you make a habit of good deeds, then by that, you reap a character. You change your character, that's what you change. Look like in marriage, you want to sustain a marriage, the person will say, the first few days of marriage, it constantly says, the wife to husband, husband to wife, I love you so much, I love you so much. If you said it, you don't think that way you're going to sustain a good and happy, growing marriage. You want to grow in marriage? You've got to keep on. Don't say one day, well, you know I love you because I've said it thousands of times. No matter. You've got to keep on saying it. Every morning, every night. You've got to try and even say it in a nicer way. To go and let the marriage grow. The same applies between parents and children. The same applies with other fellow human beings. And the same applies with a relationship to Hashem. Shiviti Hashem negdi tamid is the first phrase in the Shulchan Aruch. I've set Hashem constantly before me. Hashem gives us life constantly. And nobody ever knows what's going to happen. So it's like this. You show a character on a high level, then you reap a destiny. Then you're really helping in creating a destiny for your whole future. The whole future of the family, the whole future of all those with whom you have contact. And on a wider level, it applies to the whole nation. On a wider level still, it applies to all mankind. That's the Tomid. And then the burning of the Torah, unfortunately, literally is taking place. Yeah? And there's different ways of burning the Torah. In fact, we're going to say Lamentations. Among the Lamentations on Tisha B'Av, there's one when in Paris, in time Yechiel Paris, there was a public burning of all Sifrei Torah and manuscripts and so on. And this Kina said, you know why it happened? because a few years before, just short before, they were amongst the Jews also. They burnt up some of the writings of the Rambam, the Zealots. Yet they said, oh, the Rambam, because it dealt also with Greek philosophy. They said, they burnt. If you start burning one another's, you start too much trying to burn up others. In the end, who knows what's going to burn? Yeah, like people here that start burning up the trash bins. I mean, it's terrible. It's got no right. There's no rabbinic authority allows anyone at any time to burn up trash bins in the middle of traffic and cause danger and ill health. Not allowed to do such things. Let's go in for burning. Go in for burning somebody else's things amongst the people of Israel. Creates. That's all a part of burning the Torah. Burn the Torah also means desecrating it. Well, of course, in our time, one wouldn't expect it, but the neo-Nazism exists today. You all know the Nazis burnt Sifrei Torah and synagogue. My grandfather's synagogue, famous pictures, unfortunately, how it was burnt, including what was inside it. There were some synagogues burnt with Jews inside. In England, people didn't used to go to York because there's a certain church in New York. They put all the Jews in that church and burnt them. Told a story about that. What happened in recent times also connected with it. This meant much burning by the anti-Semites until our own day. I didn't really expect it to appear again in the liberal Great Britain, in London. In northwest London, there's a neo-Nazi organization who were going to burn the Talmud in public. And that was their plan. They said the Talmud contains things that go against what they think. It's like the Proto-Elders of Zion. So they were going to burn the Talmud. They got copies of the Talmud. They were going to burn it in public. It's terrible what's happening today. But we have to, there's also a spiritual burning of the Talmud. That means where there are places, there have been places in Israel, kibbutzim, where they wouldn't allow the mention of God and they wouldn't allow a synagogue. And they would not allow anybody to come there. But Baruch Hashem, it's changing. How has it changed? Because the Tshuva movement has changed. There's so many kibbutzim today where there's a synagogue. Although there are many of those, especially the old generation, who don't have anything to do with it, but the younger ones, Baruch Hashem, are coming back. I mean, that's the way we put it right. But there's still places where they don't want anything but the Torah. So these are all the 5 things happened on this day. Also that they were going to put an image into the temple. So also today there are certain Reformed temples where they will allow, when it comes to Xmas, they'll have there an Xmas tree, and they'll have also Chanukiah. And there's plenty of places where they will have pulpit speakers who are Christians in Reformed temples. And then they've also they make exchanges. And the Reformed rabbi can also speak in the church. And even more so, we have today Reformed rabbis who still have prayers, but they don't believe in God. So it's also, these are some of the corruptions that we've got to work against. But how to work against them? In a positive way. Through increase of Torah, increase of Chesed, Mitzvah Hashem. That way, we will be able to transform our sins and the sins of our forefathers to become an opportunity to, from the very depths and the lowest levels of the Jewish people, to reach the highest levels of bringing the whole of mankind back to Hashem. And then we'll have the fulfillment of all the glories of Biat Mashiach Tzidkenu.